All right, so I'm Janie Silcocks, the local chiropractor around the corner, in Brown House, in the White neighborhood. And that one just always cracks me up. But anyways, I have really become interested in gluten. That's what we'll be talking about, gluten and other food intolerances. Not just gluten. There's a whole reaction that happens when you become intolerant to different foods and different things that happen to people. And we have Diane here. Diane's in the back right now, but she'll be coming up a little bit later. And Diane has been a gluten-free baker. And the biggest complaint I hear from people about trying to go gluten-free is, I can't make anything that tastes good. And if it doesn't taste good, I don't want to eat it. So she's been celiac since '98, diagnosed with celiac since '98. Prior to that, for the whole year prior to that, she had migraines every day, all the time. And when she went gluten-free, she got rid of her migraines. But she also got a lot healthier, I'm sure. But she'll be telling you a little bit more about her story and what she does. She's actually up in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. She came down here to help us out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start initially with go through the digestive system and go through things. I've given handouts, and there's just a lot of things that I would love to say, and I could probably talk for 6 hours, but I'm going to really try to shorten it down and just give you the basics. Okay. So we start with the mouth. The mouth is your first line of defense for your digestion. You have, when you chew, you mechanically break up the food. We have saliva that, when we secrete the saliva, it starts to break down the food chemically. And the more that it breaks everything down, the better off our stomach has of digesting it. So you go from the mouth down the esophagus. The esophagus, interestingly enough, starts this thing called peristalsis. Peristalsis is this process where it just kind of squeezes and just starts going all the way down. And the interesting thing about that is that once peristalsis starts here, it goes all the way through your small intestines, through your large intestines, and theoretically, by the time you're done eating, you should be heading to the bathroom to eliminate what's already been accumulating in the colon. But none of us are that healthy that we do that today. You know, I don't think I've talked to anyone that ever says that they have 3 movements a day because they eat 3 times a day. But that's the way it's technically supposed to work. So then you get to the stomach. The stomach does a lot of things. It just churns and churns and does a bunch of mechanical changes, and it has what we call hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid has a pH of 1. The pH of 1 breaks down food, primarily protein. So there are people that have problems with gluten, but there's also people that have problems with protein breakdown. And I'll address that later as we go through here. Then we have the small intestine. Small intestine does a lot of your chemical breakdown. It kind of includes your pancreas and your gallbladder. You have all these enzymes that get pushed into your small intestine to join the food bolus that's just entered and start to break it down. Your small intestine is really important. That's where the breakdown happens. That's where a lot of your food stuff gets broken down enough so that it starts to get into your bloodstream, and that's where your nutrition comes from. Someone who has a food intolerance or a problem with breaking down their food, as in not enough hydrochloric acid, they're going to have issues at that point in time, because what happens is the small intestine swells. And when it swells, normally you have the walls of the small intestine have these villi, and they're convoluted like this, and everything goes in, and you have this wonderful surface area where all your food can be digested and broken down and put into the bloodstream. The unfortunate thing with inflammation is it gets rid of all those, and you have just a tube, just like a straw. So the food just goes from your stomach, shoots right down through your intestines, right through your large intestine and out the back door. So you get no nutrition, you get no value whatsoever, and there's nothing good about it. Once you get so swollen, you just can't go back until you get rid of whatever it is that's irritating that area. So the large intestine is most important for water. It takes the water out of all the food that's gone through and gives you your water back. And waste removal. That's what we know it for. You know, large intestine is going to come up and go down and around and right out your back door, and good riddance. Okay? But what comes out the other end tells us a lot about how healthy your digestive system is. Are you constipated? Do you have diarrhea? Or are you going back and forth in between? You know, is it constipation then diarrhea? Is it, you know, what does it look like? What color is it? What's it smell like? I mean, these are all things that sound disgusting, but they're very important to the doctor that you're talking to, so that they can try to figure out exactly what's going on. You know, and these days our food is not as healthy as it used to be. We don't eat the way we should. We don't drink enough water. We don't do a lot of things that we're supposed to do, and the way we process food is pretty poor. You know, we're a commercialized society at this point in time, and that's not always a good thing. I love fast food. The best thing that I ever thought came out was a microwave. But, you know, as I get older and as I don't tolerate things like I used to, I realize that there's a lot more to our food than we used to think. So now we come to food processing. Food processing has changed tremendously in the last 100 years, especially in the last 20 years. So you have something called GMO. You guys are familiar with GMO. People have heard GMO. Some people know what it is, some don't. It means genetically modified organism. So what scientists do with good intentions is they go in and they genetically modify the seeds, so either they're resistant to Roundup, which is a weed killer, or they're resistant to disease, or they're resistant to bugs that like to eat them, so the farmers can grow better food. The problem with that is now you have this one seed, and it's developing all these other seeds from that, and they're all genetically modified. So now you're taking that little bit of poison that they've injected into it, and you're eating it. So now your body has to deal with it. Soil nutrient enrichment. The vitamin contents of the soil. You know, New Hampshire has a potash deficiency of 12%. That was the last time I knew. I don't know if it has gotten worse or gotten better. Because basically people take from the soil and don't put back. You know, the best thing you could do is to put your ashes or whatever it is back into your soil to get the potash content back up. But there's so many other things. If someone, you see this mostly with commercial farmers where they grow corn year after year after year after year. And that corn takes certain nutrients out of it. If they were to grow, you know, green beans in years in between, you're going to switch nutrients. And it's going to change the nutrients around. But they don't, because it's so much easier to just grow the same thing over and over and over. So we have to watch out for that as well. And now you've got whatever that vegetable is growing becomes nutrient depleted, and then you're eating it. So you're not getting the nutrients. You know, and then part of the food pyramid stuff that I'll show you those later too is you have to eat more and more of these things in order to be healthy, because you need the nutrients. So we're eating more and more food to try to get the nutrients that we need so that we can be healthy, and then we get fat. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And what we're trying to do is to get people educated so that they don't get caught into that cycle. So fertilizer. Years ago, they used organic fertilizer. Now we use chemical fertilizer. Is all chemical fertilizer bad? No. But there's a lot of stuff in it that's probably not good for us. You know, basically, you don't want to put anything in your body that it doesn't know how to digest. So pest control is another reason that they would genetically modify something. And pest control is another reason that you'll throw chemicals on your plants. There are things around that are organic that you can use. There's even silly things. There's something called diatomaceous earth. It's basically dried crustaceans. Dried plankton, the things that whales eat, skeletons of it. And all it does is it sucks the moisture out of the organism. So you take and you put it on a slug in the garden, and the thing just starts to shrivel. And
Pepper is one too.
cayenne pepper.
Yeah, I spray my strawberries with it.
Yep. Cayenne pepper is great for deer, too. They don't like the taste of that. And raccoons don't like it on the the corn silk. We use that as well. So there's lots of different things that you can use. It's just we don't think about it or we don't look them up to find out what they are. Hybridized seeds versus heirloom seeds. Heirloom seeds means that you can take that seed and you can plant it and you can grow from the seeds of that fruit a plant next year. If you have something that's a hybrid is a cross between one type of food or one type of squash and another type of squash to get a hybrid. And the reason they do that is to either make a new kind of squash or to make one that grows better or to make one that looks better or to make one that looks bigger, not necessarily to make it more healthy. But sometimes they are made more healthy. So hybridized seeds, the problem with them is they'll grow next year, but all you're going to get is blossoms. You never get any fruit. They can't reproduce. You get these nice blossoms, and if you like to eat the blossoms, that's great, but there's not much nutrition for you like a piece of fruit would be from the vine. Flavorings, natural flavorings versus artificial flavorings. We all think of the artificial sweeteners. There's so many artificial sweeteners out there. The problem with artificial sweeteners is they're chemicals. The biggest one I think of is MSG, monosodium glutamate. It's called a neuroexcitatory chemical, and it excites neurons in your brain, and it excites them so much it makes you feel good, but they literally get excited to death, and they die off. And it's not a good thing, but it's in a lot of foods. It is addictive for a lot of people. And it's in the kids' beef ravioli, canned ravioli, those kind of things. They love that stuff, and they want more because it makes them feel good, So do you eat stuff that makes you feel good? I would. It just makes sense. But you have to be really careful. And the only way for you to find out these things is to read labels. There's been so many people talking about reading labels these days, and you got to read labels. You got to read labels. You got to find out what's good for you and what's not good for you, because each person has a whole different story. My identical twin sister is here, but yet we compare notes as what I can eat and what she can eat, and it's totally different because at birth we were separated and different. We went different ways, we ate different things, we do different things, and our bodies are treating things different, and it's the same way with each person out there. Your genetics, our genetics, our DNA is technically the same, but yet we deal with stuff differently. So each body has to find out what works for that body. And it's different, and it can change. It changes with time, it changes with how your body changes, and it changes with what illnesses you have to deal with, all these different things. Then we get to grains. Grains are, we think of wheat, oat, all kinds of different grains. There's what would you say, hundreds of grains? But grains, some are good for you, and some are bad for you, and some are good for you if they're processed right, and some are bad if they're not processed right. There's a huge difference in how grains are processed, whether your body can digest them or not. So there's this thing called sprouting, and I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but sprouting a grain basically means that you take a grain and you put it in water and you let it sprout, which is what you would do if you were planting the seed. So it's basically germination, and it's basically become a part of it's basically become a plant, and now it has the potential to grow. But once that seed has sprouted and has popped off the outer shell, I relate it to a kernel of popcorn. You have those kernels that you throw in the machine, and then once you pop them, then you've got the popcorn and you can eat it and you can digest it. I see grains the same way. And wheat is the biggest thing. Anything that's called whole grain, correct me if I'm wrong, Dee, but whole grain has a husk around it. It still has that husk. just like that kernel. And it's that husk that creates the inflammation and the problem that people have with food intolerances. So we're not just talking wheat. Wheat happens to be one of them. But it could be oats. It could be...
So when people are buying like whole grain bread, they think they're buying something healthy. And it's really...
They do.
Your body can't digest.
It's very difficult to digest whole grain bread. It's a great fiber. It's great for cleaning you out. But in a lot of people, it causes an inflammatory reaction in their gut system. Now, 60% of your immunity system comes from your gut. If you've got an inflamed gut system, you've lost 60% of your immunity. That opens you up to everything. Cancer, autoimmune diseases, not healing well, anything. Anything that happens to you, it just breaks down your immune system. If your body is fighting to fix your gut system and 60% of it is down, you're not going to be able to fight well. You know, so, and we don't think about it because we're just food machines. Put the food in, get up and go, do what you got to do. So, gluten itself is, in my research, one of the biggest offenders of people's problems. There isn't a week that goes by that I don't talk to 30% of my patients about going gluten-free diet, or gluten-free, or dairy-free, or whatever. They need to find out what it is that is really irritating their system, because it's something. Generally, when people come into my office, they've been to the neurologist, they've been to the GI specialist, they've been through every lab test and every ultrasound and CAT scans and MRIs, and they don't know where else to go. And they keep gaining weight, and they keep feeling worse, and they don't know where else to go. So, you know, the thing that kills me is someone will come in the waiting room, you're my last resort, I don't know where to go from here. You know, and I hate hearing those words, but that really clues me in that they probably have a food intolerance because they've done everything else. You know, and I'll look at them and I'll say, so you've tried to lose weight and you can't lose weight because you're eating healthy. Oh yeah, I eat whole grain bread, I eat whole grain this, whole grain that. And I was like, okay, here we go. Here's my first clue. They're eating what we've been told is healthy. You know, and like most things, we find out that what we've been told is healthy is not necessarily healthy. We go with it because we trust our sources, and I would like to think that we can trust our sources, but I don't know about you guys, but even medical doctors don't know. My brother-in-law is a medical doctor, and he basically said they're not taught a whole lot about nutrition in school. You know, they're taught drugs. That's what they know. Do they deal with drugs well? Yes. That's what they know. You know, do they deal with debilitating illnesses? That's what they do. Surgeons do surgery. They're good at it. But there's a time and a place for everything. It's just unfortunate that most doctors don't think about nutrition as something that's really important. And most nutritionists still are dealing with a lot of the old ideas. They haven't updated their information. They haven't realized that there are people that are having problems. I know of a family. There's a mother, a father, and a son. And all three of them supposedly have irritable bowel syndrome. And even though the wife actually went gluten-free, she went gluten-free, dairy-free, beef-free, can't eat eggs, can't eat bananas. She figured out all these things through an allergist, and she's not eating these things, and all of a sudden she's healthy. She's not taking that $400 medicine. Her husband's needs to be dairy-free. He eats ice cream and he gets worse, but because he liked it, he kept eating it. Her son, he was only 20 years old, not even 20 years old, at UNH, and having severe problems, and they wanted him to take this $400 a month medicine that wasn't going to do anything to take care of the problem. It would take care of some of the symptoms, but it doesn't take care of the problem. We need to find the cause of the problem, deal with the cause of the problem, and the symptoms will go away. And I think that that's just been lost in a lot of the medical sciences today. So we get to gluten. Gluten is a sticky protein compound with a nutritional value, amazingly. It's found in wheat, common grains, and food products, many food products. It's a pale yellow-gray substance used for thickening and glue. It is manufactured commercially for glue. The gluten molecule is made up of protein and carbohydrate fractions that have an extremely tight molecular bond. So you have a carbohydrate and a protein, and they're bound together so hard that your body cannot break them down. However, if that is sprouted, it separates them and your body can digest them. There was a study done on that, and people who were even celiac positive were able to break stuff down. By the way, there is a difference between celiac disease and gluten intolerance. One is a disease and an incredible, difficult thing to deal with. The other one is you just can't tolerate. The gluten intolerance is not an allergy kind of thing. You don't have an immune response like an IgG or an IgE response to it. So there's just a bit of a difference there. So this bond is when that molecules bond so tightly together, that's what causes the immune reaction in your gut system, because your body doesn't know what to do with it. Okay? When you put so much into your system that your body does get rid of it, it expels a lot of it out your backside, but there are times that your body just has so much it can't do anything, and what it smartly does is it takes these things that your body can't digest and it stuffs them in a fat cell. So it stores it in a fat cell. So now that fat cell has a purpose. So that fat cell is going to stay with you until you either detoxify and get rid of the thing that's coming down that's bothering you, or until you get it all flushed out. It's not going to go away. And there are so many people that have gained so much weight and they don't know why, but it's because their fat cells have a purpose. And once they go gluten-free, they start losing the weight, and they really haven't changed a lot. They have changed their diet. They don't exercise anymore, but they start losing the weight because the fat cells don't have a reason to be there anymore, and they just get rid of it. It's a slow process. It's probably, depending on how much you have, sometimes it's 3, 4, 5 years. But it does really make a difference. So the gluten, as I said, is found on the husk, the outer layer, the outer covering. Okay? In one book that I read, it talks about brown rice possibly being a gluten intolerant factor. Nobody that I know of, including Diane we talked about, has an issue with brown rice. So I don't know if it's the case or not. It makes sense that it could be, but for most people, brown rice is still okay to use, as well as white rice. Rice is a really good alternative for people to use as opposed to wheat. Okay, and the book that I read also says that some potatoes and corn create issues. And those are things that people do have intolerances to, so you have to be careful with them. I do have a sheet back there that you guys are all welcome to have. It's the diet that I kind of put people on. I call it the, I don't know, I'll remember it in a minute. Oh, I got it here. Food allergy detox diet. So we'll talk about that towards the end, but it's a lot of patients I put on it, and they've done really well. The problem is sticking to things is really a hard part. Sticking to the fact that you got to stay on this and not eat the stuff that everybody's making. Oh, I got blueberry buckle. I mean, ever since I told my husband I really want to try to go gluten-free. I want to get the gluten out of our system and stuff. And what's he do? He's cooking every day. He's making chocolate chip cookies, or he's making blueberry buckle, or everything he does. It's got gluten in it. I was like, you're not helping here. Granted, I don't help because I don't cook, but you're not helping me. So he's he's been learning how to do things differently as well. So the reason that wheat has become so popular is because it has a high nutritional value. It really has a lot of good nutrition in it. But when you cook wheat or potatoes or something, when you cook things and after you've cooked it, you have this like really sticky residue left in the bottom of the pan. Potatoes are really well known for it. That's the gluten part. That's the sticky part. Okay? And so that's the part that you could use to go cement your wall. No, I'm just kidding. But so bread flours. Bread flours of yesterday were sprouted. Yesterday meaning many years ago. They would sprout the flour, sprout the grains before they ground them up. Or they would ferment the grains. Fermenting is another great way to break things down so that your body can deal with them. So we don't do that anymore because we don't have time. We don't want to take the time. It takes up room in your kitchen. You have to do it right. And if you do it wrong, then you get bacteria in it. So you got to be really careful with all that stuff. It's something that you really do have to look up and learn. I know Mandy's done a lot of that. So
It's really not hard. It's just you gotta look up how to do it.
it's not hard. You just have to do it.
Right.
And take the time to do it. So gluten and associated starch compounds are found in wheat, barley, rye, oats. And oats, they say, mostly due to either crossbreeding in the fields or because it's ground on the same mills that wheat is ground on. However, you can get gluten-free oats. And gluten-free oats are a great thing for people who are gluten intolerant to bake with or to cook with or to eat.
Jamie, can you find sprouted wheat bread, or if somebody?
Julie, can you answer that?
I've seen it in the health food stores, sprouted.
Oh, Julie. Yeah.
Sprouted wheat bread?
Yeah, all the health food stores have it, and you have to get it frozen.
So health food stores, there's something called Ezekiel bread, which is close.
Yes. I
But-
think that.
But I think that, I don't know if Ezekiel bread is completely gluten-free or not.
It says gluten.
Isn't
It says-
most of the gluten-free breads that we found, Julie, are frozen anyways?
They are,
Yeah.
because there's such a small call for it at this point, and there's no preservatives, so you're getting the healthiest ingredients you have.
So it's hard to find gluten-free stuff. However, Dee makes it. And that's what she's going to talk about too. And she has a lot of stuff. I know that Job Lots has some Bob's Red Mill stuff up there,
Check the dates on the packages.
but you have to check the dates.
Job lots is
Check it out.
So you have to check the dates on the packages.
Yep.
Nothing nicer than opening a package and having something else come out besides what you want. So, gluten flour is also added to whole grain stuff to make it sticky. It's added to pizza crust. It's added to breads to stabilize it. Most people will notice that gluten-free bread, most of them, they don't rise well, they don't stick together. You have to toast it 3 times in the toaster just so that you can tolerate getting it past your palate. But these breads are not like that. She has some here. You're going to try them. She says they're always best hot, so we have to microwave them first. Yep, and she's got carrot cake, and that's just awesome. Awesome stuff. Now, some of the gluten triggers, I have handouts in the back, too, that I've taken from some sites online. There's some incredible stuff online that gives you lots of information and tells you what gluten triggers are, what is gluten-free, what is not gluten-free. But again, you got to read labels. And there are some places that say some things are a gluten problem and other things are not a gluten problem. And
some of the labels will say gluten-free, but then there'll be a warning saying
maybe
that it
processed
is
with.
processed in a plant that does produce gluten, so there could be cross-contamination there.
Yep, so cross-contamination is a problem. And there's gluten triggers include malt, which you'll find in a lot of stuff because it helps stick things together. Malt vinegar, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, regular soy sauce, soy products, modified food starch, vegetable gums like carrageenan, milk solids, and high fructose corn syrup. There's also one called maltodextrin. Some sources say maltodextrin is completely safe. I have 4 gluten-free patients that say maltodextrin is a problem.
Isn't that one of the excitotoxins in that book?
That could be an excitotoxin too, I'm not sure.
So-
Yeah. So, you know, Standard Process, which is a really good supplement company, they say that some of their things are gluten-free and they have maltodextrin in them. So I called them and said, you know, that's probably not quite true. It may, you know, you may read it in most books, but you talk to people that have it and they say they can't tolerate it. So I don't care what the books say. I don't care what the studies say. If a patient says they can't tolerate something, they can't tolerate it. And if a patient says they got pain somewhere, they got pain somewhere. It's not all in their head. Well, yeah, it is in their head because their brain is telling them, you got pain here, you got to do something about it. So that's one of my bugaboos when someone tells someone it's all in their head. And that's a lot of the people that come in my office. Oh, it's all in your head. You're making too much of a big deal about this. Well, I'm sorry, buddy. You're not living in my body. You know, I got something wrong. I need to find out what it is. And I need to find out how to stop doing it. You know, so I do get upset with several different doctors. You know, like I said, there's a lot of good ones out there that'll listen and they'll try to figure out what things are. But I mean, they're so pressed for getting so many patients through and doing so much, and you know, I do feel bad that they have all this work that they have to do and that they're so busy they can't do the right thing for the patients, because I'm sure most of them, that's not what they went in the profession for. But now they're being pushed and pushed by hospitals, and it's getting worse as Medicare gets worse and as all these new changes come into effect. We're only going to get worse. But you are your own healthcare advocate. You have to find out. You have to be the squeaky wheel. You have to advocate for yourself. If something's wrong and you know it, you're going to have to find someone who's going to listen to you and find someone who's going to deal with it. Because if your doctor's not, find someone different. And it's real easy as a doctor when you've seen a patient for years and years and years to overlook stuff as well. I've done it myself. I have massage therapists pick up on things that I didn't even think about. You know, so even I'm guilty of it. It's just easy to do. Someone comes in and they have the same things going on, and you know, something's just a little bit different. Well, okay, is it me or is it them or what is it? You need to find out. If someone's complaining about something new, you need to find out what it is. You know, so I tell people, just be strong about it. Just say, look, this is really bothering me. I need you to find out, you know, help me find out what's going on. So just be your own advocate. All right. Some alternative grains include millet, quinoa, is that how you say it? Quinoa, sorghum, and white rice. Now, it pretty much could be any white rice, and I'm sure Dee's going to tell us a lot more. She has a handout out there that has a lot of alternative things we can use as well. And that's just going to be a really helpful thing, because you can't just substitute wheat with rice. It just doesn't work. You got to add different things. You got to mix different stuff up. Dee's going to help us out with that. There was a potato famine back in Ireland in 1845, and it introduced more wheat into people's diets because there was no potatoes. These are all studies that are actually online.
5 years.
And now Ireland has the highest incident of Crohn's disease per capita of all European countries. You got to listen to what's going on. You know, I mean, there's obviously something going on. And that's back in 1845 when they were probably doing things closer to right than we are now. You know, I used to think that it was back about 20 years ago when we went to this all whole wheat everything. Whole wheat, whole wheat, whole wheat. So what do? Oh my God, we got this demand for wheat. We got to just cut the grain and get it out there. So they cut the grain. They don't leave it in the field for 3 days to sprout. They cut it, they package it up, they bundle it up, they get it out, they get it to the market. So now we've got this grain that hasn't sprouted. So we can't even digest it. But it's going in our food. You know, the manufacturers are happy. Oh yeah, we got enough grain. And then the grain's just not good for us. So it's not just that we can't eat any grain. We have to eat the right grains. Diseases, there's another one. Some cases of tremors associated with Parkinson's disease worsen within minutes of eating whole grain bread, indicating the neurotoxic effect of gluten. Within minutes, you know. And I see so many people shaken. I see so many people with Parkinson's-like symptoms. Could it just be that it's a gluten problem? You know, I mean, Parkinson's is an illness. It's the loss of substantia nigra in your brainstem. But what's killing it? We don't know. You know, and what's irritating it? Maybe gluten is part of that. Diseases that are most likely linked to food intolerances, the well-known ones, celiac, number one. However, most people won't test positive for celiac. They'll still have a problem. Crohn's, GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, IBS, IBD, irritable bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, and colic, infant colic. Many infants come into my office and have issues, and we're able to deal with it, just change a few things around. Sometimes it's mom has a lactose intolerance, and mom's milk is causing the baby to have a problem. Once mom gets off the milk, off the dairy, the cow's milk, the dairy, we consider cow's milk dairy, not necessarily goat milk or sheep's milk or any of those others. So,
But there's a difference between cow's milk in the store and raw milk.
there is a difference between cow's milk in the store and raw milk. And there's a difference between beef in the store and beef grown on a farm organically. A friend of mine, I told you, who can't have beef, has found out that she can eat beef from the local grown farmers. So there's something to the commercial part of it as well.
Well, it's not going through all that processing.
No processing, they're not feeding them antibiotics, they're not feeding them probably a lot of whole grains, they're probably letting them eat the grass and eating the things that are already, that they normally would have eaten out in the field. Diseases that are highly suspect of gluten problems, these are the ones that I see. Autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, regular arthritis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, different cancers, lymphoma, and multiple myeloma. I have had incredible success with people with stage 4 lymphoma and multiple myeloma having almost complete regression of their disease symptoms when they go gluten-free. It's incredible. Even those people have a hard time sticking to it because it's so hard to deal with unless you learn to cook right. Breast cancer, prostate cancer, neurological diseases, Parkinson's, depression, autism is another big one we see, schizophrenia, dementia, attention deficit, Lou Gehrig's disease, which is known as ALS, neuropathy, Lyme disease, allergies, asthma, thyroid disease, you name it. But if you consider the fact that 60% of your immune system gets affected, it's a whole lot easier for these diseases to start once you lose 60% of your immune system. Because every day, you and I are fighting cancer, we're fighting autoimmune stuff, just that our bodies are able to fight it. It's when we can't continue to fight it that we actually develop the disease. Lactose is another problem. Dairy, lactose intolerance. Lactose is milk sugar. That's all it means is milk sugar. It's another sugar. It's actually natural. But in a lot of dairy products, it becomes an issue for people. So people are not able to digest the milk protein, primarily the casein part of it. Some people have problems with other parts of it, but casein is the protein part of that most people are intolerant to. Sometimes they lack the enzyme lactase, which means milk enzyme, to break down the lactose. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting the right enzymes to break it down. But sometimes it's not that simple. Acid indigestion. The people that I have come in my office and say they're taking medicine for acid indigestion or GERD, gastrointestinal, esophageal, thank you, reflux disease. I have such a hard time with this one because most people are going to have a hard time digesting protein when they don't have enough hydrochloric acid. Okay? And when you eat protein, I think of chicken because that's what most people eat these days. You eat chicken or beef or some kind of meat protein, and if your stomach's starting to get really gnarly and you're like, I just don't really feel good when I eat that, those are the people that end up stop eating meat. But the problem is, why is that doing that? And when they go to the doctor says, okay, well, let's give you the purple pill, or let's give you an antacid. So they give them an antacid. However, these guys don't have enough hydrochloric acid to begin with. So you're giving them something that's cutting down the amount of acid that they already have in there. It feels good for a while because it takes care of the burning and the sensations, but it doesn't take care of the problem. What I do is I have people add hydrochloric acid pills. If they're going to eat meat, add the hydrochloric acid to it. Digest the protein. Get it digested. If you don't have enough acid in your stomach, the upper sphincter of your stomach will not close. And then what happens? Everything comes up. So now you're getting acid indigestion. So if you have enough acid and this sphincter closes and the bottom one opens, then you empty the contents into your small intestines. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But it's amazing that we don't actually look at the anatomy and the physiology of what goes on before we end up just giving someone a pill. And most of these people have already tried all the pills and Tums. We get the Tums. Tums is a great antacid, okay? And Tums takes your pH of your stomach from 1 to probably 6 or 7, 4 or 5, 6, 7, supposedly. It's supposed to decrease the acidity of your stomach. And some brilliant guy thought, oh, we'll add calcium to Tums, and we're going to sell a lot of Tums. And you know what? They did. They sold a lot of Tums. The problem with Tums and calcium is you don't ingest calcium unless your stomach is acidic. Calcium is one thing that I tell people to take on an empty stomach, if they can possibly do that. Because you need acid to get the calcium in your system. So you take Tums with calcium, that's great. You make expensive urine. You know, and I hear medical doctors a lot say, oh, don't take supplements, that's just making expensive urine. Well, if you're taking the wrong ones, you're right, you can. But if you're taking certain medications, you're making expensive urine as well because you're just getting rid of it without the benefit of it. So, yeah.
Isn't that Tums made from some kind of a rock or something?
I have no idea what Tums is made of.
Dolomite.
Dolomite?
Dolomite.
Dolomite, so
There's
it's,
a whole thing on Tums that how you should not eat Tums. I wish I knew that and I could tell you right now.
It's dolomite.
so it's made of a rock
You should
dolomite.
never have Tums for calcium because the worst thing you can do.
It's not absorbable.
Right.
Right, so it's, I mean, what it does, it's probably a rock that absorbs the acid is what it does. It absorbs acid and decreases the burning sensation that you get in your stomach. So, you know, I can think of a lot of things that would do similar things, but they've just done a great job with their advertising employees, so that good for them. But that's one of my big bugaboos. So, on the last page of your notes, you have non-color copies, but this is our traditional food pyramid. And if you'll notice, they have grains on the bottom. So you're supposed to have lots of grains in your diet. I don't remember when this food pyramid came out. I want to say back about in the 50s. It may have been a little bit later, it may have been a little bit earlier. But when did we start getting fatter and fatter? Okay? So they've got grains on the bottom. Eat all kinds of grains. And then they have fruits and vegetables next, which that's pretty good. That's pretty smart of them. That's what God gave us anyways. And then you got dairy and meat up here. And then in the very top, you have a little vial of oil, and you have sweets. Okay? I think it's a pretty poor picture of what people should be eating for their health. So, people are finally starting to catch on, and then now we have this new one. Oh, sorry. Okay? So now we have one where you have vegetables. That's a pretty good sized portion, and fruits. So half your plate is vegetables and fruits. Then you've got grains over here and protein here. They don't take into consideration that you also get protein from your grains and your vegetables, you know, in this picture here. And then they have dairy. So they've incorporated everything, so they haven't ticked off any farmers. They haven't ticked off all the dairy farmers or the wheat farmers or anybody. But myplate.gov, our government put this out. It's a little better, a little bit nicer of them. I don't agree with that either, though. So then we come out with, this is the paleo diet. Is that the diet you're on? Pretty close. Paleo diet. It's kind of pretty cool. Water's on the bottom. That's great. Should be drinking lots of water. However, if you have a very low stomach acid, don't drink a lot of water before you eat, because now you're going to dilute. You're going to take water, which is a pH of 7, and your acid, which is a pH of 1, you're going to make a pH of 3, and now you can't digest your food. So that theory that we used to say, oh, if you don't want to overeat, drink a glass of water first, that's great if you got plenty of acid, but if you don't have enough to digest your food, don't bother taking the water then. Drink the water well afterwards. Okay? So then you got veggies. Yeah, we're getting a lot closer here. And then you got meat and fish, and then you got fruit, nuts and oils, and spices. What are they missing? Grain. They're missing grains. So I still think they're falling short, because you still can have grains. You still need carbohydrates. You're not going to feel satisfied. Your hunger is not going to be satisfied if you don't have some carbohydrates. Okay, so I'm still not happy with that. And then I found this one here. This was pretty cool too. You got vegetables and fruits, meat, fish, fowl, and eggs. Fowl, I love that word. Nuts, nut butter, seeds, approved fats and oils. And then you got herbs, spices, extracts, and supplements on the top. You're still missing grains. Okay? So I looked at all kinds of these online, and there's none that I really care for, but everybody has to do their own research. I still think you need some grains in your diet, or you're going to be hungry. Okay? So what I really think you need, I have on the last sheet here, serving sizes. I wrote what we really need. 3 to 4 ounces of meat or protein. You can go vegetarian. There are other things that you can have for your protein, but some kind of meat or protein, you only need 3 or 4 ounces. None of this supersized stuff. None of this, I mean, the smallest steak you can get going out, I think, is 6 ounces. You know, I keep looking to see if there's anything smaller, but it's always 6. I mean, nobody wants a small steak. A small potato, rice, or carbohydrate. You need a small amount of that on your plate. 2 or 3 different colored vegetables. And good fats. If you're going to cook in some good fats. Use extra virgin olive oil. Use the polyunsaturated fats.
Coconut oil's a really good one.
Coconut. I've heard a lot about coconut oil recently. And then I've heard people say bad things about coconut oil. But it's natural. And it's something that we can use, and sometimes it's too sweet, and there's ways that you can unsweeten it. I'm not sure what they are, but I've heard about them. And then when you have a snack, have a healthy snack. Have fruits and veggies combined with nuts and seeds. If you have a little bit of protein with your snack or a little bit of protein with every meal you have, you're going to feel more satiated, better. You're going to feel fuller and feel like you've had something to eat with enough protein and enough carbohydrates than if you don't eat any of those. So the other thing is people don't have the right gut bugs, probiotics. We hear a lot about probiotics. They're basically, I call them gut bugs because they're the good bacteria that you need in your gut. That's what you get from fermenting stuff, kefir, yogurt. They have it. However, yogurt with a lot of sugar in it pretty much kind of nixes the goodness of it. I can't eat it, but the kefir is the good stuff for you. And what's that?
The best,
The best, it is.
without sugar.
Without sugar. It's best without sugar, yeah. So you can supplement with gut bugs. You can get them at natural food stores. I keep them in my office. They're a very healthy thing to take. Anyone who's had antibiotics. Antibiotics not only kill the bacteria that you're trying to kill, but they kill your good gut bugs. You have I'm going to call them gut bugs all through your digestive system. And they digest our food for us. They're good guys. It's called symbiosis. They get to live and we get to live. And we all get to live pretty good at it. They're not parasites. They're not sucking off us. They're doing good for us. And it's one thing that people don't eat enough of or get enough of is the good bacteria. So that's my story.
Okay, my name is Diane Ritchie. I do Dee's Delights gluten-free baking. A little bit about myself. I was diagnosed in '98 with celiacs. How I come about it, I went to donate blood at the Red Cross. They told me I was too low. My iron was too low. I should go see my doctor. Went to see my doctor, tested my iron. I didn't even register a 1. That's how anemic I was. He said he doesn't know why I was standing. I should have been flat on my back. Done. So then he tested me. He put me on a high-fat diet, gravies, everything. You know, eat the fat off the meat, anything you can. Still lost weight. I was down to roughly 100 pounds, and he says, I think I know what's wrong. So he did a blood work, and he sent it to Hanover, and that's when I was diagnosed. I went on a very strict gluten-free diet right off the bat, and I started gaining weight, feeling better, and here I am. My problem was finding something halfway decent to eat that tasted good. Nothing. Back then, very little known about celiacs, to say the least, about anything gluten-free baking, period. So that's when I started trying out different stuff. Wasn't very good. No, a lot of trial and error, a lot of throwaways. And then that's when you find out that you can't use just one kind of flour. You have to use a combination of flours. So the food that you just tried out up there, a lot of them are made, the cookies are usually made with the same flour combination, but my breads are made with a different combination, might be the same kind of flours. I mainly use white rice, tapioca, potato starch, potato flour, cornstarch, and I use xanthan gum as my binder.
You gotta use that or else it doesn't work.
Correct. You need the xanthan gum to hold everything together. Okay, so that's the big deal there. But I use different amounts of each flour in my breads, are separate from my cookies, from my English muffins even, a separate flour combination. Blueberry muffins are different than from my donuts, are different. Whoopie pies are different. So everything you have to try. You have to try. Don't give up. You will come across some stuff that's really, really bad, but then you keep trying. Okay? So that's a little bit about me and stuff. And when I went on this diet, like Janie was saying, you need support. My husband is very supportive. He was my taste tester. He was my guinea pig. Now, when I came up with a recipe, and oftentimes what you can do is take like grandma's favorite recipe, substitute the flour with a gluten-free flour. Again, you might have to try the different combinations, the rice, the tapioca, or the potato, until you hit the right consistency that you want, that you like or that you're used to. So that's what my husband was good for. He'd tell me, I'd ask him, does it taste like regular food? I call regular food. Then he would tell me, well, it's kind of gritty or it's dry. So then I just try to adjust the recipe a little bit. So that works very well. He's very good. He eats all of my food, even the breads. Every day in his lunchbox, he has my sandwiches with my bread. The only thing he has is his soda that is not gluten-free. And when he ends up working late, he stops at the Twinkie store for a snack, which is good because I do not want him to go completely gluten-free because I am celiac, so I cannot have anything with gluten. I'm very sensitive, very sensitive. Cross-contamination to me is a big one, okay? I am very careful. I got so bad, actually, this past Thanksgiving, I'm used to having, at my house, I do the Thanksgiving for my family, which is, last year we had 43 people at my house. And French family, hugs and kisses. That's, you come in, you leave, hugs and kisses. Well, I got so that after everyone was leaving, I wasn't feeling well. And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't have anything because my whole meal was gluten-free. I made it, everything, right from the appetizers up to the desserts, all gluten-free. So I'm thinking, what is going on? They were drinking beer and alcohol, and I don't drink, but then I'd kiss them goodbye, and they'd have it on their mouth. And it was just, my mouth was just tingly, and it was just that minute. That's how sensitive I am to cross-contamination. Okay, so it doesn't take much. So my house is strictly gluten-free. I do not do any commercial baking whatsoever. I've had people ask me, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't. All I do is baking-free, gluten-free. Today, I did bring some samples that you all tried. Hopefully you liked. Out back, there is a substitution list. You can find this in the magazine, which I found very helpful when I first started this, is Living Without. And they have this page in the back of every magazine. Okay? And then I went to my local Shaw's grocery store. And if you go to your local store, don't hesitate to ask. They have these. And it tells you all the gluten-free items in the store. And you'd be very surprised. Now, one thing you do have to remember, if you're used to buying the same brand every week, you have to read the ingredients because they do change them and they don't say. So you have to really read all the time. So if you have, I have a few of these up there as well, and that will tell you inside what I make, what I bake, a little bit of about my history on the back here. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you. Website, yeah. Website is not on here, but it's on the business card right there. And if you do want to order, I don't mind a phone call. You can go on the website and see what's there. That's fine. But I would prefer to talk to you, like on the phone. So if you have any questions, I can answer. Or if I have any questions for you, like if you order 6 English muffins, I'm going to say, okay, do you want plain? Do you want cinnamon raisin? Do you want mandarin orange? So if we get that out, it'll stop a lot of the back and forth on the emails and like that, and I'm not real good on the computer. So phone is much better for me. Well, okay. Does anybody have any questions? We're good? Okay. I'm going to have Julie is going to come up, and she's going to talk a little bit about the co-op up here that might possibly deliver, maybe, in this area. We'll see. So, okay, Julie, your turn. Thank you.
Yeah, D is awesome. I'm Julie Moran, and I'm Janie's twin, as you know. Dr. Janie, that I love to call her. She went to chiropractic school when we were turning 40, I think, wasn't it? And I'm awestruck at what she's done. So, anyways, I moved up to northern New Hampshire, a little bit north of here, called Colebrook. We should have called it Coldbrook. It's still cool at night up there, and we don't have to worry about it being too hot to sleep. But I went up there with a dream for natural food, natural energy, and natural health in general, natural medicine. And so I just decided whatever rose up would rise up. Well, I went looking for natural food and for good food and farms and stuff like that because I'm a junk food junkie, and I don't eat well, but I want to. It's been hard. It's been a struggle all our lives. Our mother tried to make us eat right, and all we wanted was instant breakfast and Pop-Tarts. So we were terrible. And, we're paying for it. Our whole nation is paying for what we've done in the past 40 or 50 years. So we've got to get back to the right way. And so I started a farmers co-op. We finally just incorporated after 5 years, this past March. And a couple of months ago, I met with several farmers in your area that are looking to grow their food, and most of them are organic, and we're looking to make a distribution from the southernmost place, which would probably be around Rochester, and then we get together, and all the farmers get together and figure out how they're going to truck this food up to the Mount Washington Valley, where all the restaurants are. Now, the Mount Washington Valley restaurants and the Grand Hotels are getting into this movement finally of healthy food because their people are demanding it. They've got these storehouses, these small storehouses where they've got their gluten-free ingredients, they're making them. A few of them are catching on to the fact that they can buy from Diane and just have it right then and there and make it, especially with the pancake mixes and the French bread mixes and things like that. That they just can't get it right. She's got it right. So we've started a small movement, and hopefully it will get bigger and bigger. But these farms and everything are getting into it. And so there's a farm movement trying to make it an economic groundswell, because we've got to replace our dairy industry with something else. And face it, dairy's out. But we still have to have food. New Hampshire has a production rate of 4% of the food that it eats. 4%. We've got to change that, because if we can't find food elsewhere, we better be able to produce at least 50%. Or we're 4 days without food if the trucks stop. If the trucking industry stops, we're 4 days, and then we're out of food. So we've got to do something. And there's another part of the groundswell that has to come from the consumer, because the farmers can only produce as much as the consumer will buy. Otherwise, it goes to the pigs or on the compost pile to make another bunch of food the next year that nobody buys. And it's a vicious cycle. So it's one of those things where the consumer has to make the demand, and the farmer has to make it happen, and then we have to get it to the place where we can make a distribution system that makes sense, that's economical, that's feasible, and that keeps everything going the right way. So that's what we're doing in the North Country, and we are moving into several different areas. We are having a chef's challenge up in the North Country. The grand challenge will be at the Grand Hotel on November 3rd. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be telling the chefs they have to prepare, but at that one, it'll be a dessert and an entree that you have to prepare with 75% of the food from the local co-op, and 100% of it has to be local. It doesn't mean it's going to be gluten-free or whatever, but there'll be plenty of things there. They are sensitive to that. And we're going to have regional cook-offs before that, somewhere between September and October. So you can look for that. And you're going to start delivering to this area? It will take a while for us to be able to do that. We have to be able to meet the demand first. Right now, the the bottleneck is farm production. When we get to the place where we're not selling everything that we're growing, when we're growing the right things, which we're not yet, but when we're selling everything that everybody wants and all that stuff, and we still have more left over, then we expand. And as we develop what I call the Route 16 corridor, there's going to be restaurants and stuff like that that are going to want the local food. And once that catches on, because the people demand the local food, then it's going to catch on. That has to come from a people's demand, because local food is more expensive, face it. If the farmer's not going to make money, he's going to go under, whether he wants to stay alive or not.
I know Flatbread Pizza in North Conway, all their stuff is from local farmers, and they have a list of the farmers that they buy from locally.
Yes, Margarita Grill is really big on that. Red Parker Pub, several of them are our customers. They're working at it. Moat Mountain Smokehouse, Brewery, and Maestro's, they're all working really hard. Most of their stuff is coming from Pork Hill and Sherman Farms, and plenty of other places. White Mountain Cheese is getting up there. But the more demand we get from the people, the more we're going to be able to grow. So, I really would love to see the people in this room decide to have a support group and meet once a month and make a commitment to be able to say, hey, this is, I tried this, or I tried that, or, maybe this didn't work for me. But, sometimes it works for you for a while, and then it doesn't work anymore, and then it works for you again. Only you can figure it out. But when there's other people telling you ideas, it's electric. It's something that just gives you more encouragement. I really thank you for all you're doing. I like you, Mom, when I said that. Because, this is what's got to happen. We've got to create the movement and the groundswell from the demand side as well. So, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
I'd just like to go over one thing I didn't go over before, and that was the food allergy detox diet. You guys probably grabbed one here. It basically is developed from Dr. Jane Forrest down in the Allergy Associates down in Rochester. Her and her techies, I can't remember what they call them, whether they're physician's assistants or not. She's got a great crew down there. And basically, I asked her if we could use this, and she said yes. And what it is it's a diet to figure out what you have problems with. So if you don't have a problem with chicken and fish, you don't have a problem with carrots, you don't have a problem with broccoli, and you don't have a problem with rice, then you use those items, and that's all you eat for 4 days. Breakfast, snack, lunch, and dinner. Any combination, cook them any way you want, but just be cautious of what you cook them in. We were talking about extra virgin olive oil, which is twice pressed, cold pressed olive oil is a really good thing to do. And we're also mentioning that it's much best when you cook stuff in oils is to not overheat it, no high heat. Cook on low heat so you don't denature the oils. They're much better for you that way. So you can cook it any way you want it, but these are the things that you eat. And by day 2, most people say that they're not only feeling a lot better, but they don't care that they're just eating these things. But by day 4, they get pretty tired of eating the same things over and over. Okay? And what the diet originally is you would add something that you think is a problem, like gluten, and you would eat a lot of it that day. Some people would get instant results, and they would know immediately. Chalk that one off my list. My theory is add something to give yourself variety. So add some more vegetables, add some fruits, add something that you're not going to be sick of so that you can get used to, so your body can still get healthy. As it's getting healthier, you're getting a variety. And then when you get to the point where you feel like, okay, I can deal with this, then you add gluten, or you add milk or dairy, or you add any one of these things that I have down the list here. Caffeine is written in on the bottom, because some people can't do without their caffeine. They have to have their caffeine. And I say, well, if you have to have it, you have to have it. But realize that some people have an issue with caffeine. So, do the best you can do. And each person is going to find that they have different problems with different things. And it may be a particular it may be a particular brand. We talked about someone having an issue with beef bought in the store, but not homegrown beef. And same thing with dairy. Some people can't do dairy from the store, but they can do dairy straight from the farm. There are a lot of farms around. I know Brookfield, Stoneham Road, I know there's a bunch of them in this area. There are farms, they have goat milk, they have, there's one over in Brookfield that has beef cows and milk cows. There's lots of chicken farms around, there's lots of different farms around that you can go get these things, you just have to seek them out. It tells you here that to avoid artificial colors, flavors, sweeteners, those kind of things. Diet drinks to me are a bugaboo. I hate diet drinks. I wish people would just drink regular drinks if they're going to drink them. Obviously, water is the better choice. Not if you're eating your meal, but when you're going in between, you need to drink lots of water. So if you keep a food diary, just keep a journal, write down what you ate that day, and if the next day you feel like you were 90 years old, it was something that you ate. White potatoes can do that to people. I have someone who white potatoes, she just thought she was 90 years old and ached all over, couldn't go to work, couldn't do anything because it was that bad. That happens to be one of the nightshades. So nightshades are tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and potatoes. And some people have issues with those. They don't realize it. I mean, tomatoes is a staple. Someone said to me, I can't give up tomatoes. You know how many tomatoes I eat a day? Well, no, I don't know how many tomatoes you eat, but maybe that's part of your problem. Maybe you're eating too many tomatoes. Maybe it's the wrong, maybe it's the wrong kind of tomato. Maybe you need to go do a different type of tomato. There's hundreds of thousands of different types of tomatoes. Try a different one. Go to something different and see if that's the problem. But this is how you can quickly and effectively get to it without going through these 28-day detoxes and all these expensive things. It's just nice, easy, quick way to get to the root of the matter. And I think several in this room have tried it and have had some decent results. So that's all we have to say. Thank you for coming.